Welcome back to JDM Legends presented by Turn 14 Distribution. Today we begin the twin turbo install on the Supra, or do we? We last left off removing the single turbo kit off of the 2JZ here, and we also found that all the timing components have been done, and we've got a set of HKS 264 cams in here, which is a good thing. And the plan was actually to remove the twin turbo setup off of this 2JZ GTE, but this is the VVTi version. And I figured this would be quicker to do rather than have to yank the motor on the red Supra and remove those turbos. However, I have just realized this is a front sump setup on the VVTi engine. That is a rear sump setup, which means all of the piping that for the turbo drains is in a different position. So rather than like trying to cobble it off that car, I think the smart play is to remove the engine, and then use the turbos off of that one. So we're gonna stop working on the black Supra today, and we're yanking the motor on the red one.
Everything was going so smoothly until we decided to take the wheels off, because why not? Just makes it easier to get at everything. And that's when we realized, when we demoed that wheel lock removal tool to you on the back wheel, and then took the other two off the left side of the car to put on the black Supra, we never got around to taking the lock off of this wheel. So I gotta go back to NV Auto, re-borrow that tool, so that wheel's gonna stay on there for today. But in the meantime, you're gonna see us redo a lot of what you saw us do on the black car already, which is drain all the fluids out, remove the rad, take off the front bumper, and just get down to business of like getting this thing ready to come out. So rather than boring you with any of those details, we're just gonna go into a time lapse and you can watch this all happen in high speed. Things went pretty smoothly, removing the front bumper. Lots of fasteners that were semi-rusty, but nothing that fought us too much. And interesting to get a closer look at this side mount intercooler. It is a beefy unit. It's 11 inches tall by 6 inches deep. It's got these really nice heavy duty end tanks on it. Really pretty impressive. And this confused us at first. We were like, what is this thing? And then I had a look on this side and we realized this is the motor that raises and lowers that secondary lip, which that button on the dash intrigued Pete and I so much. Well, there you have it. The 2JZ is out, and we actually went old school on this one. We consulted the factory service manual, which our buddy Houdini from Red Hill Toyota gave us, And it came in really handy. It was just interesting to look through the steps for removing an engine. Not something we would typically do, is it, Pete?
Especially on paper again. It kind of brought me back to like, you know, pre-1990 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And this stuff was like the commonplace, right?
Normally you'd be Googling for a PDF or something, but this was nice to have. It's tight against the firewall. As you saw, it took us a little bit of effort to like get it clear of the firewall and at the right angle to pull it out.
It always does. I mean, what engine, it just like slides right out. They never do, right?
No real big hiccups to mention. And it is nice seeing this twin turbo setup here. It's in excellent shape. It looks really good. I think this was a smart move. It looks to be in much better, at least cosmetically, it looks to be in much better shape than the VVTi motor that we were thinking about using. One interesting thing we did find is the shifter. As you'll recall, if you've been watching the series from the beginning, this had no reverse lockout. And this silver metal plate here normally has a vertical tab here, which is your reverse lockout, and you can see it's just sheared off there completely. So somebody was like power shifting into fifth gear, maybe? Like, what,
you know what I think happened? Someone didn't know that you needed to lift the
and they were just
thing,
like,
and they were just probably giving her like, oh, how does this go into reverse?
I bet you're right. Someone like Moose was trying to put this car in reverse and didn't know about the little release mechanism here. So interestingly, you cannot buy just this plate with the little lockout on it. You have to buy the whole shifter.
From Toyota, yeah.
From Toyota. Pete actually has a spare in his stash that you bought to go with your brand new in the box Getrag. Yeah. So I think we'll just end up using that. So that'll fix that issue.
But actually, why don't you guys post in the comments and let us know, can you buy that from like the aftermarket, right?
Yeah,
I'm
good
sure
question.
Someone's maybe made something like that.
It looks so simple. I'm surprised someone hasn't made that. The gearbox is covered in oil, and I do mean covered. There is a lot of it back here. And best we can figure, it's coming from the back of the valve covers, which we know is a very common place for these motors to leak. It's just oily all over the top of it. The next step, I think, is to just take all the stuff off, isn't it, Pete, and then get it into the black car.
Yeah, this is not going to be fun. I think removing this twin turbo setup is a huge pain in the butt, but we're going to find out. Anybody looking for a yard sale of 2JZ parts? Holy smokes. You know what? All in all, that was not a terrible job to remove those twins. It's just time consuming, but with it out of the chassis, it's not that bad. I think really the difficulty is going to be putting this back onto the engine with it in the car. As you guys also saw, Dave stripped the intake manifold just because we were like, we want to pull the harness off, and then it spiraled out of control. Things to note, man, there is a ton of oil on the exhaust ports. This thing has very, very leaky exhaust seals. I am excited to see what they're gonna look like when we pull them off. I feel like they're just gonna crumble up. So with that being said, we are now at a point where we wanna start moving the twins back onto the other car. However, as luck would have it, the front turbo you can see is off on the setup there, and that is because something has gone through the impeller. It is chewed up in there, and I'm pretty sure it would still work, but because we're getting ready to sell this car, I couldn't knowingly not replace this turbo, especially because we do have some other twins that will bolt right up that are off the VVTi motor. However, that means we're gonna have to do pretty much 80% of this job all over again. A bit of a mess later, and we have ourselves one of the other turbos off of the VVTi engine, and you'll notice it is the rear one. And why would you take the rear one off, you ask? Well, guess what? The front one has exactly the same damage as the front one that came off our 2JZ, which is coincidental, I guess? I don't know, maybe there's just like debris is always getting sucked up into the front turbo. So it was beat up, so we pulled the rear one off, and it looks like the only difference on these guys is the compressor housing, you can see it's got this little nipple here. So I'm gonna have to take this housing off and put it on this guy, and then I think we should be good to go.
We having fun yet, PT?
Today is just full of problems. The next one being, I can't seem to remove the snap ring off the back of this turbo, and it's not that it's seized up, it's just a massive heavy gauge. You can see like my snap ring pliers that I have, they actually just bend. If you put them in here and you try to use this, like watch, you can see that one's just, see, it's just bending. Those, you need like super heavy duty ones. These, you know, needle nose pliers, even them, I try to like squeeze this together, it does not move. Like you need a serious set of pliers. We don't have them, which, man, at this point I'm like so close to just posting online just to buy another turbo. But we do have one solution. That is NV Auto. Nam says he's got a set of monster pliers, so DP's gonna grab these, go there right now, and I'm gonna go home, take a shower, regroup, and come back tomorrow nice and fresh, and hopefully we can start buttoning some of this stuff up onto that black car.
I believe Nam's exact term for those pliers was big ass mother huge ass honk fucking pliers.
Well, I hope they're gonna work. My motivation is back up because Nam at NV Auto, of course, had a set of these OTC snap ring pliers, and look at the size of these things, DP.
Yeah, they're monsters.
This is a monster. So I hope they're gonna work here, because if they don't, then I don't know what will, but I can't imagine they're not up to the task here. Wow, look at that. And I love the fact that they lock like this. Like, look,
yeah,
so this
clever.
is now locked in place here, and there it goes. Look at that. That is wonderful. So both of the compressor covers are off, and you could see what happened to this guy. Like the corners are just chewed up, and truthfully this turbo actually looks a little bit cleaner from the compressor wheel, which is a good sign. I'm hoping that the rest of the turbo is going to be good. It's a gamble when you're using used stuff like this, because you know the real mileage of this VVTi motor, who knows what it was, who knows how it was taken care of. We're just judging by looking at it. So I'm gonna put this back together, and then I think it's time we get the black Supra onto the hoist here. Before we begin the arduous task of installing the twin turbo kit, I wanted to take a chance and swap over the valve covers. As you'll see, the black car has these ones with an AN fitting, and of course, with us going back to stock, we don't want that there. And I think more so, this is gonna give it a proper OEM finish look versus like these painted black ones. We'll put these on the red car, and we're gonna be running a catch can on the red car. So this is actually beneficial to us. So it's kind of a win-win situation here.
Valve cover's on there looking good, and we are replacing these little grommets that hold it down. As you can see, these old ones are just completely trashed. These are hard as rock and failing, so ordered up some new ones. Got these nice fresh boys to go on there, because that's how much we care about making this Supra. What are we calling it? The beater Supra, PT? We want to make it less of a beater Supra, so the next guy can enjoy it and not have to worry about silly little things.
You know
like,
what, those are a huge problem? When you try to pull the valve covers off,
yeah,
they like jam up because they've baked on there. So
yeah,
they're such a pain in the butt. Getting new ones is like imperative. If you're looking for a quality alternative to an OEM exhaust manifold gasket, Cometic actually makes these, and you can get this through Turn 14. It was a last minute thing. I almost forgot, DP. I almost forgot getting these. And we're
buying two of everything. It gets confusing around
I
here.
know, and we certainly would have not liked to have reused the old ones. So thank God Turn 14 had these in stock. The factory exhaust manifold here is really unique in the sense that it has this bellows, you can see, which actually has a lot of play, which is pretty, I think, cool. And of course, the way the turbochargers bolt onto here is also pretty neat. I mean, I think all in all, it's a better system than if you had to take the whole exhaust manifold assembly with the turbochargers and try to like put it on here and then bolt it up. It looks like a nightmare. And now our twin turbos going back into the bay here. Let's see, can I just like drop this in here without any real headache, or is this gonna be like a full
hernia waiting to
battle
happen?
royale here? Oh
Right
man,
at the back
DP,
here.
it's
Yeah, you're caught on
I'm
some
caught on the
Hoses
the lower.
at the back. You're caught on the front too.
Oh no. Oh man. I just realized. We can't put this on like this because we've got the oil return on here, and this actually needs to clear and go under the motor mount. You can see the drain line is off. I still don't know if this is gonna work because in the manual they say to remove them off of the turbos, which I'm not very keen on doing, but it does. Yeah, there you go. It looks like it's cleared. So let's slide that in there. Okay. So far, everything has been going well. We did get the turbo oil return line buttoned up. It was a bit of a pain to get down there, but everything's on. And as you can see, I can get to the bottom stud here as such with my wrench that's got a bit of a swivel on it, so that certainly helps. And then these two guys, I think I'm gonna go underneath the car. So you can see getting to the lower two studs is difficult, but you do have a bunch of room, and thank goodness for this wrench again. This is supposed to be torqued to 50 or so foot-pounds.
It's 40 foot-pounds.
40 foot-pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna give it my best here, and I think we're gonna be plenty of tight. I've got good leverage. Bam, there it is. Those are nice and tight.
All right, PT, on a scale from 1 to I want to kill myself, how frustrating is this job right now?
It's gotten really bad, actually. It's just, there's like these brackets, like the oil feed lines didn't fit up perfectly, so we struggled with those. Like we're probably 2 hours deep into just like all these nonsense small little things. Like I'm trying to put these support brackets in here, so that hold the turbos up. Like the actual turbos and the manifolds and all that was pretty simplistic. It's just all of the other things here now are just like fighting me, man. It's not fun. I was just about to put on this lower O2 housing, and I noticed, look at this, some welding right here. There's some welding right here. And sure enough, if you look inside, there must have been a crack because this area here and here have all been welded up. So interesting to see. I have seen cast manifolds crack, so it's not like it's a completely uncommon thing, but down this far in the exhaust area, I wouldn't expect that to crack, but maybe that is before the cat, so maybe that's the reason. Anyways, went into the stash. This I did have, I wish I had turbos, but instead I've got this kicking around, and this guy is perfect, doesn't seem to have any cracking, so we're gonna bolt this up now. With the hot side all buttoned up, now it is time to move on to everything up top here. And I was gonna start off by bolting up this coolant pipe, which we had to remove because if you guys recall, we had to take the rear turbo, move it to the front, and the coolant pipe is different. And guess what? The gasket that resides here, it is disintegrated. I looked at the other turbo, they're all trash. There's no way I can try to salvage that. And unfortunately, these gaskets are not available here locally or in stock, so we'd have to wait for them. So I think what we're gonna do is order up a gasket sheet, and then we're gonna cut it out. I've already kind of made the template here of what we're gonna need to do, and I think this will work with a little bit of like gasket maker as well. I think this will totally seal up and be fine. This is coolant, so it's not like a really critical thing. And what we're gonna do as well is order up that gasket just in case this does leak. But that means it is time to wrap up. What is this day? I can't even remember. Is this day 3 DP or day 2?
It's all a blur to me now.
I think it's day 2 of this crazy job. So we will be back tomorrow and we will finish this. Our gasket sheet is here this morning, and you can see it is for oil, coolant, and gasoline. So all 3 of them. This is gonna work well, I think. And you can see here's the template I had made, so I'm just gonna copy this and I'll show you guys how I'm gonna stamp this stuff out. I've cut out my gasket here, and the next step is to use these punches, which have a hollow center in them, and that will ensure I get a perfectly round opening here rather than like trying to come in with a razor blade. So this, you just go like that, and I think that should do it. There you go. Usually all I would need to do now is just punch a center hole, but because the coolant pipes are, it's like a dual system on that, that outlet there, what I'm gonna do here is come in with a bigger punch and just kind of do like 3 holes, which should open up the right passages. I don't know if they're supposed to be linked or not, but the original one looks like that, so I'm just gonna try to mimic it as much as possible, and then we'll go from there. And there it is. It's kind of janky looking, but I think it's going to work perfectly here. You can see once I put that on there and line everything up, we do have the proper provisions. So now to just ensure that this seals properly, I am also going to use a bit of like the high temp silicone gasket maker, just because this one isn't as thick as the original one. So I wanna make sure this seals properly.
Should have stayed single turbo, PT.
No, we shouldn't have, although I don't know how to put this stuff together properly, like what perfect sequences that it's supposed to go into. And right now there's like 2 vacuum tubes that connect to a solenoid on like a wastegate on the back side of here. And they're just like impossible to get the clamps back on. I've got the hoses in, but the clamps are so difficult. It's just, yeah, it sucks. Plain and simple, it sucks. If you guys have any tips, please post in the comments if there's like a proper sequence to put all these vacuum lines back together so I'm not cursing and swearing and fighting this for half an hour. Like you can see, I just can't get my tool in there, and I probably don't have the right set of pliers to do this job. Like it's just, it's so tight. Like, why is this pipe in the way? Why is this in the way? Come on!
I got the solution, PT. Rotary swap it.
Oh yeah, that'll work. That's probably got more vacuum lines. All right, I am giving up. As you can see, here's the issue. I can't get pliers down here to put these 2 little hose clamps on here. So what I'm gonna try to do is put these back on here, then put these back down and then come underneath. I think I've got a better shot to get a set of straight pliers on the backside and then pull these down. There, one clamp is on. I've just got the other one. Oh, it's fighting me a little bit more. I think I may have moved it back up, so we're gonna have to come down again, move the clamp down, and then back up, and this will be done, people. We're finishing it up here. So essentially what is left is to hook up all the vacuum lines, and so many of these are just like old and rotten and decayed, and some of them are cracked. Like this one, you can see there's cracks all the way through it, and you don't wanna put this back on because we're gonna get a vacuum leak and it's gonna screw up our whole system here, which, trust me, I don't wanna touch again. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some of Vibrant Performance's silicone vacuum tubing. This stuff is actually really good. It's pretty heat resistant as well. I think it's up to like 500 Fahrenheit, which is quite impressive for what looks like, you know, regular old silicone hose. It works really well, so I'm gonna replace all the small lines with that. And then for the bigger lines, I'm gonna use some heater hose. And the only reason I'm using that is I can get the hose clamps back, the factory ones back over it. I do actually have some of the same diameter vacuum hose, but I can't get the clamps on, and I do want this to look somewhat OE. So I'm gonna go with the heater hose for the larger ones and the vacuum hose for the other. So let's do this. 30 minutes later, we have ourselves all fresh vacuum lines everywhere. Look at the mess of this stuff. This is just all garbage, gone. Well, that officially marks the completed twin turbo setup on the car. That was a lot of work. We got a lot done in this episode. And in the next one, we are gonna continue to work on the cooling system, get everything together, get this thing fired up. We are not out of the woods just yet though. This thing has a bunch of problems with the igniter harness there, the coil, so we gotta fix that. There's a bunch of other things we need to figure out. So make sure you stay tuned for the next one. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you guys are enjoying this content, certainly think about subscribing and hitting that notification bell because it certainly does help us get our content out to the masses.